Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. We're going to look at three trends that Texas needs to see continue heading in the right direction to feel good about not just maximizing the rest of the season, making a push for the college football playoff, but maybe getting over that hump against Georgia when Texas comes off the bye. This edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by our good friends at Hays City Store. There are very few restaurants, and when you go to them once, you know right away it's a special place. And Hays City Store, trust me, is one of those places. Scratch-made Texas comfort food is what they're all about. They've got the famous truck stop enchiladas, the award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts. It's all good, and it's all made from scratch. They've got live music 6 nights a week, 50 beer taps, ice-cold long necks, tasty margaritas. They've got 13 TVs in their ice house. That is a perfect game day setup, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. And if you're out there on Sunday, they've got that brunch menu from 10 to 3 that is outstanding. Hays City Store is dog-friendly. They've got a tree net for the kids, plenty of space to run around. So gather up your whole crew, head on over to Hays City Store. For more information, check out their website, HaysCityStoreTX.com. Hays City Store, it's uniquely Texas. CJ, I want to look at 3 positive trends for Texas that need to continue. One is Arch Manning against the Blitz. If you look at Pro Football Focus and Arch's numbers against Vanderbilt, Clark Lee's defense is one of those defenses that they will bring pressure to you, and we all know Texas is going to face pressure against Georgia. But Arch Manning against the Blitz against Vanderbilt, CJ, he was blitzed 19 times, 15 for 19 for 248 yards and 3 touchdowns, a Pro Football Focus grade of 91. That is about as elite as it gets. And CJ, whether it was identifying the pressure and throwing into the blitz, I think Trey Wisner in blitz pickups also was really big for Arch. A quarterback's ability to function and thrive against the blitz tells me more often than not his eyes are in the right spot, which kind of tells you the game is probably slowing down for Arch at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I thought last Saturday against Vanderbilt was really the first time that you could point to Arch identifying potential blitz pickups before the snap and then adjusting accordingly. Of course, you mentioned some of the numbers of how he performed against the blitz. Look, I thought he got Texas into its best positions when in blitz situations than we've seen the entire season, and Texas certainly benefited as a result. Maybe there's something there in terms of spacing the field quite a bit and 11 personnel. Sark talked about it too. You know, when you're able to get a number of wide receivers out to the field, Texas had been a little bit open to some blitzing from the star and the nickel position. Texas obviously benefited from that on the opening snap of the game, but Arch is certainly starting to recognize potential blitzes from that second level more now than he had at any point earlier in the season, and that's going to be something that he's going to need to carry with him to Athens against a Georgia team who 75% of their sacks this year, Jeff, coming from that linebacking position.
No doubt. Also, Arch's NFL passer rating against the blitz in the Vanderbilt game, 158.3. That's perfect. It doesn't get better than that. So Arch definitely doing things right now against the blitz. And CJ, another benefit the offense got was only 1 tackle for loss allowed, no sacks allowed against Vanderbilt. The trend is the offense's ability to prevent and avoid negative plays. One statistic that I like looking at when you kind of start digging through it is stuff rate. And stuff rate is the percentage of your runs that are stopped for either no gain or behind the line of scrimmage. 15% stuff rate allowed for Texas against Vanderbilt. Only 4 of the offense's 27 official rushing attempts were stopped for no gain or behind the line of scrimmage. That's the second lowest percentage of the season, CJ. The only better percentage Texas had was 2 of 37 official rushing attempts against Ohio State were stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage. Look, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This running game isn't going to get to the point where it just overwhelms people. But if you can avoid the negative plays and at least have some semblance of a run game to where you can stick with it the entire day, CJ, that would be something against Georgia that Texas did not have last year.
Yeah, definitely. And just staying ahead of the chains, not living in the 2nd and 22s that Texas was in against the Oklahoma, right? Kentucky, they were backed up. Florida, who knows how many times that Texas was back to 2nd and 25 or 3rd and 20. You just can't live and succeed in those situations, especially against a team like Georgia who feasts off of your mistakes. What's going to be really interesting is what you just mentioned. Texas against Vanderbilt, only 1 tackle for loss. I know that we talk about this Georgia team and how daunting they may be. Of course, it is Georgia. It is still Kirby Smart. They're going to dial it up. But this Georgia team so far this year has not been a team that has created havoc in the backfield with its front seven. I've got a couple numbers here for you. They are right now 132nd in sacks this year. They only have 8, and I mentioned 75% of those coming from CJ Allen and Chris Cole. They're 2 linebackers. Cole spins down off the edge every now and then, about 30% of his snaps or so off the edge. But beyond that, 29 tackles for loss this year, Jeff. It's the second worst mark in the entire country. So if you're trying to find optimistic, piece of evidence that will move forward, it's, hey, maybe Texas found its best 5, and maybe that interior has figured something out with 3 fourth-year guys on the interior right there. That would be huge if Arch is given that time to sit back, diagnose what's going on in front of them, and, of course, be given a pocket to make plays down the field. And right now, Georgia, it's not the Georgia defenses of previous years, Jeff. So that is probably the biggest point of emphasis moving forward. No tackles for loss, stay ahead of schedule.
You mentioned staying on schedule, and the further removed we get from the Vanderbilt game, that may be the one thing about the offense that impresses me more than anything, because we've talked about some pretty unsavory to-go distances on third down for this offense this year. Now, you look at the end result, 7 for 11 on third down is outstanding, but what really grabbed me, CJ, on third and fourth or shorter, 5 for 5 for this offense. Your average to-go distance on third down against Vanderbilt, a little over 6.5 yards. You can win football games. I don't care who your opponent is. If you're consistently in like 3rd and 6 or shorter, and you're able to convert those short situations, those 4th and less, 4 yards to go or less, convert those at a perfect clip or close to it, you're going to win a lot of football games that way.
You absolutely will. And look, third downs haven't been a big strength of the Longhorns, but to your point, and especially going back to that second half against Mississippi State, if you stay ahead of the chains, you give yourself an opportunity to carry out drives. And with Arch's legs and his ability to escape and extend, well, then you go back to the second half against Oklahoma when it was 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and reasonable, and Arch was able to get out of the pocket, use his legs and his arms to find Parker Livingston, DeAndre Moore, guys out of basically extending plays out of the pocket down the field to convert and give yourself and the offense additional chains. Also, we haven't seen a lot of this since basically the first 4 games of the year, but Sark likes to be aggressive on 4th downs, Jeff. You can't be successful on 4th downs if you're back 8, 9, 10, 12, 30 yards. That's something that Texas has been very good at recently, is putting themselves into a position to have 2 downs to get 3, 5, or 8 yards, something that Sark likes to set up for as games continue.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, again, the running game isn't just going to get to the point where suddenly Texas is rushing for 200 yards a game or anything of that nature, but the ability to just run it well enough to stick with it is exactly what Georgia did last year, CJ. And as we get to the defense, Texas is elite against the run. We'll get to those numbers in a minute, but looking at the 2 games Texas played against Georgia last season, the regular season game at DKR, Georgia 30 carries for 108 yards, 3.6 a pop. In the SEC championship game, 37 for 141. You're at 3.8. So again, not just overwhelming to where you were getting gashed on the ground, but it was good enough that Mike Bobo was able to stick with the run. And it's no coincidence that Trevor Etienne was about as healthy as he was all year for those 2 games against Texas. That made the difference. But CJ, you look at this Texas run defense, one of the metrics that I really like following for, hey, how good are you either running the football or stopping the run? Line yards per carry. Basically, when you look at any form of analytics, any analytic that deals with the run game is going to give the offensive line either full credit or full blame for anything up to 3 yards. In other words, your offensive line, if they're doing their job right, should be giving you the first 3 yards. Texas right now, CJ, they are 3rd in the SEC in line yards per carry allowed at 2.4. Only Oklahoma and Auburn have been better in terms of line yards per carry allowed. I always say earn the right to rush the passer. You got to earn the right to rush the passer. If you're really good stopping the run and you can get teams to 3rd down, then you can unleash the hounds, and that's what Pete Kwiatkowski has been doing. And even we've seen early downs where Texas has been able to get after the quarterback. But CJ, that metric right there, if Texas can shut down Georgia's run game and turn this into a game where it's your pass rush against Gunnar Stockton, that's a situation that PK should want all day, every day.
Yeah, look, again, that's a talented Georgia defensive line, but Texas has had success against talented offensive lines elsewhere, right? And you don't sit number 1 in the country in sacks on the season without having some talent. So to be able to pin back Colin Simmons or Brad Spence and Ethan Burke, who's really come along over the last 3 or 4 weeks. That would play right into the hands of the Longhorn defense. And, of course, when you add back Michael Tafford, Jelani McDonald, 2 guys in the back end that should be able to mask a lot of issues should your pass rush not get there, Jeff, well, then you're starting to play close to full strength. And, again, you're going to need exactly that against Georgia on the road, a place where, look, opposing teams do not walk into Athens and leave with a win very often. So that's something that I look at and say, you're going to need to have some of your best blitzes dialed up. And I wouldn't be surprised, Jeff, to see more of Anthony Hill coming off the edge as well.
Texas, for what it's worth, CJ, 78.2 rushing yards per game allowed. That leads the SEC. It's second in FBS. Texas also the best yards per carry allowed in the SEC, 2.41. And only Oklahoma and Vanderbilt have allowed fewer rushing touchdowns than the 6 Texas has allowed through 9 games. Again, this run defense, people can say what they want about PK. And look, I've certainly had my issues with some of the stuff that's going on in the secondary this year. But really, ever since that first year where the run defense was just absolutely atrocious, somehow, CJ, even though the personnel's changed, they've managed to somehow get better and better statistically every year against the run to where they're one of the handful of top run defenses in college football right now.
Yeah, and that's with complete turnover at the position in terms of personnel, coaching change in there as well. One thing to remain, Pete Kwiatkowski's defensive line has been very, very good. And I'm with you. This Georgia team is one that I look at and say, hey, I know Gunnar Stockton's had a good year. They've been very efficient whenever it comes to putting points on the board. But there's room to have success defensively. You look at 24 points against Florida, 20 against Auburn. I know that Alabama game was close, not one that was particularly high scoring. It's not an offense right now that I look at and with utter fear that they're going to blow the doors off of you. It's one that I think you can make a team very one-dimensional given the strength of the Texas defensive line.
Should be fun. We'll get to talk about it for another week leading up to the game in Athens coming up next Saturday. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our friends over at Hayes City Store for sponsoring it. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, that's okay. You can get over the site right now and sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our coverage before, during, and after every Texas football game this season. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.